Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching around the world. Welcome to the semi-final of the Nations Cup 2022. It's Great Britain against Italy. It's going to be a great matchup, and we're going to be live in that match very shortly indeed. Let me bring on Bradley Adams, who's watching on the east coast of the USA. Bradley, welcome to the show. We've got an exciting matchup.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pretty excited to see these two teams battle it out.
Yeah, and I mean we've got some quality players. We're expecting a close match tonight.
For sure. And these teams both have quite the pedigree, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top.
Okay, so we have got an interesting format for you tonight. It's the best of 9. On Monday night, we had semi-final one. That was France against Spain. It was a resounding victory for the French. And we're going to find out by the end of tonight, in the next couple of hours, who will be the other finalist to take on France. So let's have a look at the format for tonight, because it's the best of 9. So the first team to get to 5 victories will win. It's the 49er first and the Nacra last, and those are 10 against 10. So those are going to be some crazy races with all the sailors involved. That's going to be fantastic to watch. Then we've got the star class. We've got 2 races in the star. They're one-on-ones, females first and then males. Offshore racer J70, the laser, the Far East 28, and of course, near the bottom, the F50 as well. Bradley, what's your favorite out of those?
I'm a big fan of the J70, so anytime the J70 gets involved, I'm all over it. So, but besides that, the starboat, the one-on-one, that's always where the big battles are, and it's really hard to pull away in that boat. So no one's really ever out of it.
All right. Well, we're a minute away from the start of the very first race. So it's Great Britain against Italy. We've seen these two match up in the past, and it has always been thrilling racing. And Great Britain have had the upper hand at times. The Italians have got the better of them at others. So let's see how it unfolds. Let's go out on the water with about 30 seconds to go. This is race number 1 in semi-final B of the Nations Cup 2022. We've got all the players, 10 players on each side, remember, 2 substitutes or reserves, and it's race number 1 in the 49er. So it's going to be fast, Bradley.
Oh yeah, and the start's going to be massive, and we'll see how. Looks like there's some people doing penalty starts here, and we'll see who can come out on top on that. Generally, only one boat can win out, and it looks to be Maradoni coming out with a great start there off that boat side.
So a good start for Maradoni at the committee boat end of the track. Maradoni von Pigeon of Great Britain. Early days, though, in this race. So if you're new to this, it's basically they go upwind, they come downwind, they go upwind again, and then it's a final downwind to the finish. A kind of standard Olympic sort of course, really. We are following up the middle of the course, Adam GP 14. But the leaders still Maradoni and Von Pigeon.
Yeah, and we'll see what Von Pigeon does here. He just goes straight across. So that makes it seem that the British feel that they're pretty comfortable in where they are right now. And they're not trying to do too many team racing tactics quite yet.
So about halfway up this first leg, and the boat spread out quite broadly across the course. Looking at the mini map in the top left corner, though, it's a little bit darker on that right hand side. So we'll see if the boats on that side start to speed away and get a bit of an advantage coming up to that top mark.
Yeah, you can see Maradoni's already trying to defend that right side pretty hard here and really pushing to get his other teammates across from that left.
So it'll be a few seconds before they make it up to this top mark. Von Pigeon and Hawkeye out in front. Maradoni slipped back to third, but it's really close as they come in with Von Pigeon leading the British charge. Then comes Maradoni, then Lorenzo of Italy, and Revo and Bonetti and Adam. So it's a really mixed up fleet here. And remember, this is team racing. So it's not just about getting your first and your second place. It's about helping the rest of the team get as far up the fleet as possible.
Yeah, we'll probably see a battle here with these three Italian boats trying to track down Maradoni here, and let's see if he's able to defend.
Well, they can hit 23 knots downwind in the 49er, and you'll see them accelerate away now on the screen. And the leader's already approaching the bottom gate. But Von Pigeon is still out in front. We're following this battle towards the back of the fleet. Deja Vu and Lorenzo. So which way would you take? Would you take the left mark or the right mark here, Bradley?
I think you got to take the left-hand turn here. It looks like they're in a pretty big righty here, and there's certainly a darker patch of water over on that right side. So I think the British team was able to do the right thing there with both their boats being able to round that mark cleanly.
So round they go. This bird's eye view of the course, and most of them preferring to go up the across the center of the course up to the left-hand side.
Yeah, the breeze is definitely shifting left here. So Tommy Campbell there is in a pretty good position coming back across now.
Here we go. We're with the leaders now. It's Von Pigeon and Maradoni, both in the same team. But coming up is Tamble of Italy on this left-hand side and challenging for the lead. They're obviously going to head out towards that ley line and then tack in towards the mark. But Von Pigeon at the top of the screen looking well placed to hold that lead. Maradoni right behind him. So the leading boat has tacked. It's heading up to the mark. Maradoni is going to follow him in. It's close for third. And they're challenging Maradoni, but he's safely into that zone. He goes round the mark. Then comes Sorrenti and Bonatti. There's some big names in the Italian team that have been to World Championship finals and Nations Cup finals on a number of occasions. But names like Alberto and Velista 71 currently languishing in the middle of the fleet. So the leaders are off on their final leg down to the finish line.
And there's a big battle here for this fourth position that I think sort of determines this race pretty good. If the British team can get both their boats ahead, then that sets them up nicely for coming away with the victory in this one.
So here we go towards the finish line. Von Pigeon of Great Britain and Maradoni are going to cross that line. They're going to win this first race. Bonatti right behind them. So it's Britain 1 and 2, but then comes Italy. And of course, being a team effort, it's about where some of the players at the back of the fleet finish in this 10 against 10. So we'll have to we'll do the maths and we'll confirm who's actually won the race in a moment. But look at this battle going on between the British and the French. Sorry, the British and the Italians as they come down to the finish
Oof,
line.
that's a close finish.
And it's a difficult one to call, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if I had to place my bets right now, I think that the British team were able to come away. Getting three of the top four always helps. So, but we'll see when the scores come in.
There are the results. So fifth and sixth went to Italy. Really, really mixed up, isn't it? It's like they've shuffled the cards as far as the results are concerned, but 15, 16, 17 for Italy could cost them dear, and a 19th place there as well. So we'll wait for the race officials to do their maths, and we'll see how it works out. Anyone impress you in particular, Bradley?
Um, Maradoni did pretty well of making sure that he was keeping the Italian boats in his coverage zones, which was really helpful. He really allowed him and Von Pigeon to pull away from the fleet. And having those top two spots just makes such a big difference in these big fleets.
So would you say the the 10 against 10 races are a bit of a lottery? You've got less control really on what you can do.
Certainly. I think that the the big against 10, it shows a lot more of just like overall depth, and then the smaller the match races obviously, but even 4v4 and 3v3, it shows much more the individual strengths of that each team has.
Yeah, these players, they talk beforehand, and they'll be talking right now because they will have just found out. Great Britain have won that first race. It was really close, though, just 10 points in it. So Great Britain getting a first victory against Italy in this second semi final. And terrific result for them, and they will be relieved to have one on the board there.
Certainly, and winning the first race of any regatta, it's such a confidence boost of sets you up well for looking forward for the rest of the event.
Yeah, I was just saying, they talk beforehand. They discuss tactics and strategy. Did you spot any in that race?
Um, Not really. It sort of just seemed go fast. Um, it didn't really look like anyone was doing too drastic of moves, but I think they spread out along the course well and tried not to impact each other's race.
Okay, so a very different race coming up now. So we've had a fast boat, very fast boat in the 49er. And we're going to move on to the star class in a few minutes' time, a much heavier, slower boat, and the race is one against one. We've got a female race and a male race later on in the program, but we're going to start with the female one against one in the star class. Um, you're talking about the J70 being one of your favourite boats. I imagine the Star class being so completely different is a little bit. I don't know. You don't like it, or you just find it more difficult.
It's I like it. I like the star boat. I like the slower boats. Star J70, they're both on the slower side of the spectrum. Um, and I think it allows for much more technical racing. Where
Okay, so
the 49er, the Nacra, you can just sort of pull away. the star, you're never out of the race, right? The big
Okay,
wind shadow.
yeah, let's get out onto the water because we're into the pre-start for this race. And you can see them sort of dancing around each other. We've got Rooster Jenner for Great Britain and Sozzi for Italy. The Briton, 19 years old, up against up against the Italian Rosalba Giordano, who's 23. And it's a bit of a match race here. They're trying to get penalties on each other. Talk us through it.
Yeah, and the Italian boat here is very much in the controlling position here, and the British boat here is just trying to get away from them. But the Italian boat's doing a really good job here of keeping control and uh, not letting and not letting the British boat get a clean start.
So race number 2 in semi-final B of the Nations Cup is underway. It's the star class. It's Sozzi of Italy against Rooster Jenner of Great Britain, and it was a fairly even start. Lots of jostling for position, lots of trying to inflict penalties on each other, but they're away now, and they're heading off side by side. And Rooster Jenner will be pleased with her positioning there.
Yeah, we'll see. Right now, Sosie's just forcing out Jenna to the right side of the course, and will cause Jenna to have to sit in her bad air for the coming back to the mark. So we'll see if Jenna's able to do anything to get out of that.
Yeah, she's the Italian from Reggio Calabria, down in the south of Italy, putting the pressure on the British boat. They've gone beyond the ley line now, as the Italian tries to force the Briton further and further away, and we're going to see the Italian in a moment tack and head back into the mark, hoping to leave the Briton in her wake.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mistake by going this far out. As you are more on a reach angle, the bad air hurts a little bit less. So the British boat did a good job of staying patient and continuing out that far, and should be able to get a good hold of the Italian boat on this downwind.
Yeah, we'll discuss the tactics of downwind sailing in the Star class when we get to it. But right now, let's watch these two boats. 25 meters between them, which is not a great deal for the Briton to catch up on the downwind leg. And so they come up. And I think Sozzi will be pleased with that performance, that first upwind leg, as she leads Rooster Jenner around the top mark. Now, the whole thing about this star class heading downwind, it's got one of the biggest wind shadows in eSailing, about 33 meters. So Rooster Jenner will have an effect on the Italian, and we're going to see now, as that wind shadow takes an effect, we're going to see the Italian slow whilst the Briton speeds up and closes that gap. So anything the Italian can do, Bradley, to try and hold on to that lead?
Yeah, you just want to be able to you want to be able to get to this course right side so that you can defend with starboard advantage coming back. It's all about jostling to keep starboard advantage on these downwinds. So you can see them both sort of sailing off to that course right and trying to get a good position on each other.
Well, that distance coming down, and I didn't see Rooster Jenner having as big an effect as I was expecting on Sozi. I thought we'd see the Briton speed past the Italian, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think Rooster Jenna sort of missed some of her spots there a little bit, and oversailed the wind shadow or the right placement to really get on top of Sosi.
So the Britons decided to split and head away, and now they cross and they come back together, and it's pretty close now. And certainly in these early stages of this upwind leg, the Briton has done better than she did downwind. She's pretty much closed the gap.
Yeah, that was a really good move from Jenna, and uh, sort of caught Sosi in the middle of attack that she had to abort.
Now we're in a similar situation to where we were on the first upwind leg, the Italian in control here. Let's see if she forces Rooster Jenner out as far as she did the first time.
Yeah, I think we're gonna probably end up seeing a mirror image of the first leg right now. So we'll see if Jenna can come back more on this downwind.
Certainly, the breeze is a little bit stronger over this right-hand side of the course as the Italian finally tacks and heads in towards that mark. Well, it worked for her the first time, so I guess she's decided to stick to the same tactics. Now, what can Rooster Jenner do?
She just really needs to make sure that she's fully on fully with her wind shadow on top of Sosi. Any time where that's not the case, Sosi will be love and life.
So here they come then, up at the top mark. Now, the advantage is 16 meters. That's pretty much the same distance and advantage that she had the first time round. Final downwind leg. They're heading towards the finish line. There's just 16 meters between them. It's going to be difficult for the Italian to hold off Rooster Jenner now, surely.
Yeah, and this entire race will come down to this downwind leg.
So how I asked you how Rooster Jenner could catch the Italian last time. How does the Italian stay out of that wind shadow?
Doing exactly what they're doing right here. So they want to continue on to the side as far as they can, and then time their ley line back so that that Rooster Jenna isn't able to get to leeward of them and gain the space. But it looks like she's starting to engage here, and we'll see what happens.
So now we're getting into match racing tactics. The Briton trying to get the hook on the Italian, trying to get right of way so that she can, or she's just trying to force an error.
Yeah, I think the Italians done a really good job here. It's going to be hard for this British boat unless they can get up to her, which we'll see. It's real close here.
Look how close it is. She's almost touching the boat in front of her, and the Italian doing everything to hold on.
It's all coming
Let's just
here.
get an aerial view, really, and see how far that finish line is.
Oh, unfortunate
Penalty
penalty.
on the Briton. She touched and collided with the Italian. She didn't have the right to do that, and that has cost her the race. She put everything into it. She risked everything, and I guess it was her last chance. It was last chance saloon, and in the end, the Italian pulls away and takes the victory to square the match 1-1.
Yeah, the Italian played that just about textbook perfectly. So it was really hard for the British boat there.
Yep, let's talk us through those stats.
Yeah, and Sosi definitely had the best start and really controlled the race throughout. Makes it really hard as the trailing boat to follow and come back, and it puts all the pressure on you. So makes for a tricky race.
It does. I think a pretty mature race really from Sozi. There's confirmation of the victory, and yeah, a really sort of she held her head, she held her nerve, didn't she, Sozi, to really take it to the finish and get that victory.
Certainly.
Do you feel there was anything the Brit could do? Do you think that was a mistake, picking up that penalty then?
Yeah, it was. I think maybe she could have been a little bit more patient with that. Um, and they have the indicators on their screen, right, of who has right of way, and I think she should have been a little bit more careful with that to confirm that she had enough overlap to be able to make that move work. But it was getting towards the end of the race, so she sort of had to do a last ditch effort to make it happen. It unfortunately didn't work out.
Okay, so if you've just joined us, it's semi-final B of the Nations Cup 2022. It's Great Britain against Italy. We've had two races. It's the best of 9, so the first to 5, and it's currently 1-1, all square after the 49er and the Star Class race. And coming up now is the J70, your favourite boat in eSailing. Bradley, tell us why it's so good.
I believe we're an offshore racer here. No. Um,
Yes, you're quite right. Offshore racer, not your favourite boat. The J70 is coming
I
after that.
do enjoy
There
the
we go.
offshore racer, though.
Confirmation. It's a good job you know what's going on, mate.
I do enjoy the offshore racer. I think that it's another very similar boat to the J70, where it's on the slower side of things. It ends up being a lot more tactical, um, and you have to be quite precise with all of your inputs and your boat handling to make the move stick.
Right. Okay, then. We're just waiting for all the players to get into position and be ready. And then once they've had the okay, the race officers will start the starting procedure, and we are underway with a minute to go to the start. So 5 players on each side. As a general rule, the team that gets 27 points or less is going to win this. So you can do your own maths as we follow this race. Right, what are the tactics here?
So controlling the top of the race is really important. If you have a 1-2, and you don't have the last two boats, then you're gonna win. So being able to get off the line well and really start to control the fleet from the front makes everything a lot easier.
Right, well, we'll see how they do that. 24 seconds to go. And you're looking at the blue sails of Great Britain and Italy in the red and the black. And 3 British boats. I was going to say over early. That's they've come back though, and now they're all really close. I don't know if that was part of their tactics and strategy, but they've all picked up an awful lot of penalties and a disastrous start for the Italians.
Yeah, the Italians just set up a little bit too early there and weren't able to hold their line with the British pressuring them from behind.
Right. Well, looking at the wind, it looks stronger exactly where they are at the center of the course. But the Italians mostly over on that right-hand side, heading to the ley line. Ronstan or Deja Vu, hugely successful e-sailor, has represented his country in the Nations Cup many times. He was closest to us as we were watching them head upwind.
Yeah, the Italians have come back quite well here. After having three boats are over, they've done a really good job on this upwind to keep the British boats behind them.
Now, one of the tricks for escaping your opponent's wind shadow is launching the Jenica early as you round that top mark. So as they come up and there's a penalty for Moro.
Yeah, you can see Farley here is really trying to compress the fleet, right? If they are able to compress the fleet here, it allows for their boats that are behind currently to really get back into it.
Okay, so they round that spreader mark at the far side, launching their spinnaker as soon as they can, try and get that wind shadow out and fill those sails with wind to accelerate down to the bottom mark for the first time. They've got to get as much advantage downwind as possible in this class of boat. And you're going to see now some overtaking and some jostling for position as they try and get away from the 45-meter wind shadow of the boats behind them. And here we've got a cross and a penalty for Alberto. The leader's already through that bottom gate and heading back up upwind. So it's Velista 71, the ice cream man from Viareggio and former world champion, is out in front in the offshore. And Von Pigeon is second. Another good performance from him then. Now, let's have a look at this little battle going on between first and second. Velista 71 and Von Pigeon of Great Britain. Just a few meters between them. And obviously the Italian here, Bradley, wanting to get as far ahead as possible for that final downwind leg.
For sure. In these boats, it's certainly easier to defend downwind than in the Star, but as much buffer as you can get, you'll take.
So here we go. The grand final of this particular race as they start to head downwind. Velista now has built up quite a lead from Von Pigeon just in the closing stages of the final upwind leg. Down he goes, and he's got enough advantage, hopefully, he would say, to escape Von Pigeon. As the rest, there are penalties at the back of the fleet as the Italians fight to try and work their way up the fleet. Now, would there be any reason for Velista to maybe slow down and try and challenge Von Pigeon and Speedy?
Um, I don't think that they're so far ahead at this point that it becomes really tricky to slow down and try and do that.
The
But the
real
battle
battle
is
in this
certainly in
race
the back
is
here.
happening right in front of us now, with penalties galore on the Italians. The British really tactically here, strategically, making a really good job of rounding that top mark, and the fights still continue there. Arthur Farley, a world, an eSailing World Championship Grand Finalist, taking on the Italians Bonatti. Penalty to him. Alberto trying to get clear.
Yeah, I think the battle is going to really come down to Arthur and Deja Vu at the back of the fleet here. So we'll see what happens to that. And there, as I say that, there's a penalty to Deja Vu. So it's going to be interesting to see if Farley can get ahead of these other boats or not.
So Velista won that race. Von Pigeon second, Speedy third. But it's what's going on in front of us now, near the back of the fleet. These little battles, these one-on-ones, as the Italians try to slow
Uh,
down Arthur Farley and try to get ahead of him. And
and
Ronstan in the fight as well here.
Yeah,
So
that was a
Farley's
really good.
across, and then it's 3 Italian boats. You were saying, Bradley?
Yeah, that was a really good move by Arthur there to be able to get it on the leeward side of I forget, I think it was Alberto there,
Mhm.
and that secured the win for Great Britain there.
Yeah, so there we have it. Britain, Ronstan at the back, but crucially, there were plenty of other Brits, and Arthur Farley moving up may well have secured that victory for Great Britain. So, looking at those stats, Arthur Farley maximum wind speed 30 knots, and look at all the overtakes towards the back of the fleet there in the middle of the race between legs 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that um, Arthur and Deja Vu really did a great job in the back of the fleet there of allowing their teammates to pull away, right? And you could see on the last downwind that Von Pigeon, Speedy, and Gavin were all way ahead, and it made it so that they only had to stay ahead of just a couple boats, and their team would get the victory.
So, as an e-sailor, what do you think? Which sort of race do you prefer? And then confirmation, then that Great Britain got the victory in the offshore racer. So that brings the score then to Great Britain 2, Italy 1. Well, Bradley, we promised that it was going to be a close race and a close match, and it's certainly turning into that, isn't it? I was asking you, with these different formats, what do you prefer, the bigger fleet races or the smaller ones, the 2 against 2s, the 3 against 3s, or the 10 against 10s?
Oh, I certainly prefer the smaller ones. 3v3 is certainly my favorite, um, and it allows for some really technical racing. I think it helps that that's more similar to the racing that I do in my real life sailing. Um, so, but it's great.
And what is the sailing you normally do?
So I'm a university coach here in the U.S. So that's a lot of small boat racing, and we do a lot of fleet racing and a lot of team racing. So all of our team racing is 3v3, and it's some really close racing. I also sail a snipe, which is a lot of fun.
Right. Well, this isn't 3 against 3. That'll be a little bit later in the laser. This is the 4x4, and it's in the J70. Um, I asked you this earlier. What's tell me what the advantages are of the J70?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit. Of it's, a, I think it's one of the better designed boats in the game. There aren't too many issues with it, and it really provides some close racing, and you can really push it on um, how you're interacting with the other boats.
Yeah, a really fast, maneuverable boat, and it looks like we have all 4 sailors from each team in the game now. So we are into our starting procedure with a minute to go. And I'm just trying to work out, looking at that racetrack, where it is they're trying to place themselves.
Yeah, this is a hard one. If I had to guess, I would want to be a little bit course left, but then that also has some disadvantages of you give up starboard advantage to the other team. So we'll see. I think that there should be a lefty at some point during this first leg and off the line, but we'll see if that'll be enough for those boats to get back across.
Yes, we shall. 30 seconds to go, and some penalties that will have long gone and worked out of the system before the start being handed out there. So now's about the time that they don't want to be picking up penalties. We've got an Italian going up the all the way along that start line and picking up penalties already. And it is go in this fourth race of the semi-final with penalties for Lorenzo of Italy and Sakamos as well. And this time, 2 lone boats have gone up that right-hand side of the course, and the rest are searching for this these dark waters, the stronger breeze on the left. Right decision, Bradley?
I think so. I think they're in a little bit of a variety right now, but you can see with the windsocks that it's certainly going to be shifting left as they get out to this side. So Italy is in a really controlling position right now, but we'll see if it ends up shifting enough for Arthur to get back across. And it don't look like it.
And Arthur just crossing behind the rest of the fleet. And look at that. The Italians have got their own
Ooh,
custom skin as he picks up a penalty from Arthur Farley. Farley
really
takes no
good move
prisoners.
there.
He certainly didn't take time to admire the look of the Italian boats. Another penalty. It's all too easy for him. So they're heading off to this left-hand ley line. Sakamos has now joined this battle as he tries to chase Arthur Farley down. So Von Pigeon out in front again. He's having a great regatta so far. Caven Fines. And then we've got 3 Italian boats. We've got Rock. That's 18-year-old Rocco from Manfredonia. And he is now nominally out in the lead as they approach this top mark.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here whether Gavin is able to get back across Rock here. That could be pretty determining of who ends up ahead in this race.
So it's Rock who comes up to the top mark in the lead. And if he maneuvers right and correctly, he's going to increase that lead. Look at that, 20 odd meters from Caven Fines. Then comes Lorenzo, and then come 2 British boats from Pigeon and Arthur Farley. Then come a couple of Italians and Maradoni of Great Britain. Here he is. I was wondering where he'd got to. Some distance behind. Spinnaker's launch, J70s heading downwind. Downwind is where the J70 really shows itself to be a fast boat, and it's where they have to take advantage. And they have spotted that those darker shades on the water on that right-hand side. They're all going that way. It's a bit of a procession at the moment, though.
Yeah, they're all waiting to get more down the course and then try and cover each other on their way back towards the mark.
What's Maradoni in front of us here? What does he have to do to get back into it?
He just has to sail fast. He wasn't even really close enough to be a factor on Amos, but it looks like he's extended as far into that wind as he could, and hopefully that should help him get across.
Oh, it's close here between these 2 boats. There's a fight going on as 2 Italian boats pick on that British boat, but Sakamos comes off worse and picks up the penalty. Right, the Italians going further left, trying to get away from the rest, from the turbulent air of the other boats. And we're now with the leaders. Rock
Yeah,
out in
this is
front.
a really important battle here where Gavin's really trying to just hold off on Lorenzo and not let him past him and get Von Pigeon back ahead.
Caven Fines from Northern Ireland, 38 years old, slugging it out with the two Italian leaders, trying to disrupt their flow to give his teammates a chance to catch up. And the Italian tacks away. And now they're shadowing each other up to the top mark. Oh, he's coming in for the attack again. He's chasing him and finds tacks away. How would you sail this, Bradley?
I'm a little surprised that Gavin just switched off of Lorenzo there. Um, I thought that he would have stayed with him a little bit more and continued to attack to really make sure that Von Pigeon was ahead. Because it allowed Rock to be able to impact Gavin more than Gavin was impacting Lorenzo.
Well, here they go then. Round this top mark for the final time. And it's close, isn't it? There's a real challenge there. And he inflicts a penalty on Lorenzo. And we're going to see Fines now move past him and into second place. That could prove crucial. And another penalty on the Italian, this time from Von Pigeon. Same tactic, fell for it twice. Oh, he stalled it. He stalled it, trying to launch that spinnaker. What's going on there?
So he wanted to gap here a little bit and secure that Gavin was ahead and give him a little bit more breathing room on Lorenzo.
So Rock now out in front with a good 50-meter lead, which is borderline. It should be enough to avoid Fines' attentions. And we've got Von Pigeon and Sorrenti. I think this is Lorenzo Sorrenti. This is building up to a nice little fight, a cat and dog fight, all the way down to the finish line.
Yeah, we have an interesting situation here where Arthur Farley's really extended off sort of on his own. And for a while there, he was sailing a good knot slower, but it looks like he's found that pressure now on that right hand side and is coming in looking pretty good on the fleet.
But the battle in front of us for third place. And now another Italian comes and joins Von Pigeon. Is the filling in this panini, and Lorenzo is putting on the pressure. And are we going to see them inflict a penalty on Von Pigeon? Yes, they do. The 51-year-old from Ipswich is going to now slow down. You see the boat fade on the screen, and that means he's slowed and the Italians are away. Or are they? He's accelerated away again. And now he's probably just one maneuver away from that finish line, a straight line to the finish for Von Pigeon. And Arthur Farley still in the mix there. Penalty and really close on the finish line. And Von Pigeon coming in. And in the end, that he didn't manage to recover from that penalty. So a victory for Rock.
Yeah, that was a really solid race by the Italians there, and they were able to really stay with their plan of just being under control with good teamwork. I think the British team was relying on Arthur to do a lot of the uh, heavy lifting, and I think it really showed that the Italians had a bit more teamwork than the British team did.
We'll wait for confirmation, but I think the Italians might have squared the match again. And there, you see, Rock got ahead at that top mark and on the first leg and stayed ahead, kept out of trouble, played it safe, and managed to get away from the rest of the fleet to win the race. And there you go, confirmation that Italy win the fourth race of this competition, and that squares the regatta 2-2 between Italy and Great Britain. Well, we said it would be close, didn't we, Bradley? And it certainly is. They're giving us some real high quality racing.
Yeah, and this is just great to watch. It's always nice to watch two teams as skilled as these guys are and really battle it out. And we'll see. Who knows where it'll go from here.
Well, I'll tell you where we're going to go. We're going to go to the Laser, one of the most popular boats, of course, in the world on real waters, and a relative newcomer to eSailing. It's been around for a couple of years now. What's the way? How do you sail this in eSailing, Bradley, in order to get your victory?
Well, it's changed a little bit over the years, where the game developers have sort of refined it a little bit. There used to be some things that you could do to make your boat go faster, but now it takes a while to turn the boat. So you really have to make sure that you have speed to go into tacks with. It's really hard to engage in tacking duels with people in this boat because it just takes so long to get that tack off.
So we have got Maradoni. We've got Maradoni and Ronstan representing Great Britain. It's 3-3, and Lorenzo, Alberto, and Amos representing Italy. Can't quite make out who the third British boat is, but we will in a moment. I'll be able to confirm that in a second.
Yeah, I believe that's Maradoni, Deja Vu, and Arthur
Maradoni.
Farley.
Okay. So here we go. The race officials are happy. Everyone's in. Everyone's ready. We begin the starting procedure, and again, we've just come from a 4x4 race. Bradley, the tactics different for a 3-3.
A little bit, but it's still pretty similar. In the 3v3, having the first place becomes super important. Because as if you have the first place, as long as you can keep one of your opposing team's boats in last, then you'll win the race.
Yeah, that's the various permutation. Basically, you get first and second or first and third, you're going to win this race. And there's this interesting kind of this kind of quirk to the rules in which if it's a draw, which you can obviously do because it's an even number of boats, if it turns out to be a draw, then it's the team that got second place that get given the victory. Here we go then. It's the Laser. It's 3-3. Great Britain against Italy with the scores at 2-2 and immediately a split in the fleet.
Yeah, great start by the Italians there with Lorenzo just being able to get out and be clear of Maradoni there in the middle.
So the Italians now out in front, relatively in command here. And I think that's Maradoni, is it? Heading off to behind the fleet to the left-hand side, already inflicting a penalty on Alberto.
Yeah, it was a nice work there by Maradoni. He was starting to slip into Lorenzo's bad air and was able to clear his breeze while also impacting Alberto.
Here goes another Brit. And is he going to come away with a penalty against the Italian? No, this time Arthur Farley picks up the penalty. And you see him slow down. So attack from the leading Italian boat.
Yeah, it's going to be close here with Maradoni and Amos, but I think Amos might just barely have a piece here. And interesting spot here for Maradoni to tack, right in Lorenzo's wind shadow.
So Lorenzo out in front. Then it's Deja Vu. And then come the rest of the fleet who we're following here. Just seen Maradoni, the 50-year-old from Paisley in Scotland. Another hugely experienced sailor. In fact, there are very few inexperienced eSailors in this semi-final. And the Italians in a procession on the right with the Brits on this left-hand side.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them all lined up on an upwind like that, where they're all in each other's wind shadow. Normally, you'd want to be able to spread out a little bit more and have some better lanes to attack and defend your competitors.
Right. The two halves converge now here on the top mark. And it's very close, side by side. Are we going to see some penalties at the top mark? Let's watch it unfold. They all tack in now into their final maneuver with Lorenzo out in front. Then comes Great Britain's Deja Vu. Inside comes Arthur Farley, picks up a penalty on Maradoni. Another penalty there. Alberto it's been really tough, this mark rounding on Maradoni.
Yeah, and Deja Vu is the last hope here, where he really needs to get in front of Amos, or else the Italians are going to run away with this one.
So there you go. We were talking about tactics and strategy in these team races, and we saw that exactly there. The wily, experienced Alberto, he kind of sacrificed his position in a way in order to inflict the penalties, but he split the fleet, and now Lorenzo's away at the front, but really the battles, the intrigue is happening at the rear here.
Yeah, the British have done a really good job on this downwind of really getting back into the race, and they're now in this. They rounded with a 3-4, and are now pretty securely in a 2-3.
So Alberto and I think is that Arthur Farley fighting it out. Whoever it was has kind of headed off to the opposite side. Now Alberto has, I think it's Maradoni in his sights. Yes, it is. But the leader, Lorenzo, who I thought was going to make a lot of headway as he went downwind, hasn't really got that big an advantage. 32 meters is easily catchable for Deja Vu. Maradoni right behind him. Remember, first and second or first and third is going to guarantee you a victory. So really, he wants to see Sacamos or Alberto move up the fleet.
Yeah, and I think the British boats here are doing quite a good job of staying in control of the fleet. I would like to see Maradoni attack Alberto a little bit more here to secure that Arthur is in front of him. But the British are in a pretty controlling position here in this race.
So looking good for Great Britain then, but still plenty of this race to go. That crucial final downwind no less, as they line themselves up on the ley line.
Big righty here, though, really got Amos back into this race. So you see Deja Vu here now really trying to slow them down and keep his teammates in front.
Yep, the two Italians have fallen right back. As things stand, this is going to be a British win. Remember, it's 2-2 in this semi-final. It's the first to 5 victories that wins it. They are playing for a place in the final against France. And now here they go. 3 British boats all coming round the top mark. But where's the Italian going to slot in? Is he just going to... he played it.
Really good
I thought he was
move
going to
there
play
by
it safe, but he
Farley.
picked up a penalty. He sort of hesitated, didn't he?
Yeah, and Farley did a really good job there of sort of showing. He sort of bluffed him where he thought that he was going to have some room. Farley showed him some room, and then Farley just shut the door.
Well, that looks like quite a done deal. The only hope for Italy is if Alberto can now catch Arthur Farley. He's certainly going faster here, or that's the impression you get from this view. And he's closing, but he's also running out of racetrack. You can see the finish line ahead. Can Farley avoid Alberto?
Farley just needs to beat one boat here. As long as he stays ahead of one of these guys, then Britain wins this race.
He knows that. He'll have done the maths. And if he hasn't, his teammates will have done on their in their chat room. They're all in touch with each other and communicating. But it's close here. Alberto really going in. And he's picked himself a penalty. He pushed it too far. And Farley is clear. So that is going to be another victory for Great Britain, putting them 3-2 up now against Italy.
Yeah, I don't know if there's many people I'd want more to be in that position if I was a British boat than having Arthur back there and dealing with the 2-on-1.
There are stats then, best maximum speed for Alberto. I wouldn't surprise me if he did that on that final downwind leg. 13 knots wasn't enough, though, to catch Arthur Farley in the end. And largest number of penalties, Maradoni with 9. I think they kind of picked on him, didn't they, in that first upwind leg. Best average speed, and that's often what it's all about, 5.7 knots for the race winner, but not enough to help Italy get the overall victory in that race. Yeah, so Sorrenti led from start to finish.
Yeah, Lorenzo certainly did well of getting back out in front, but I think he needed to come back and help out his teammates a little bit more. In the team racing, there's only so much you can do from ahead, but I think he needed to at least try something out and hope that he could drag his teammates back up through the fleet.
So there we go. We have now had 5 of the 9 races. The score is Great Britain 3, Italy 2. If you're just joining us, it's the first to 5 victories to seal the semi-final and make it through to meet France in the final at the weekend. So we've had the 49er, we've had the Star, we've had the Offshore Racer, we've had the J70 and the Laser. Right, we are back on the keel boats now with the Far East in a 4 against 4. It's called Far East. It's a boat made in China and has a lot of fans out there, and is sailed above all in the Far East. What do you make of it?
Yeah, seems like a cool boat. It's not one of my favorite boats to sail in the game, but I think that it does pretty well, and it's a little bit quicker on its maneuvers than the J70 is. So we'll see how that impacts the racing.
Oh, it's actually quicker, you think, than the J70, do you?
A little bit. It turns a little bit quicker than the J70 does, I believe.
Bit faster upwind as well, I gather.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll see how it unfolds. And just like the Star class, it's got quite a large 32-meter wind shadow downwind. So watch out for
Yeah.
those crucial downwind legs.
Yeah. It has a large wind shadow, but it's not a very powerful wind shadow. So the downwinds still it becomes hard to pass in these boats.
Okay, 50 seconds or so to go. What would you be doing in this position right now? Where would you be trying to put your boat?
Well, it looks like there's a big left shift on the course right now. So really trying to be on that pin third of the line and getting away clean with good speed to try and tack across the fleet.
Tamble, Lorenzo, Sacamos, and Alberto representing Italy in this race. We've got Maradoni, Ronstan, Caven Fines, and Speedy One coming into the competition now in this race. And penalties already as boat sort of makes its way, kind of stuck on the line, the Italian there, and a terrible start for the Italian team.
Yeah, the British team did exactly what they were trying to do there, and worked out for them.
What were they trying to do?
So they wanted to control both sides, right? So they were able to get Maradoni and Cavan out controlling that right side, and they have two boats out on the left as well that are controlling that side. So we'll see how that works. They look like they're coming together now, but each boat on the British team is ahead of at least one Italian boat. So don't get much better than that.
Well, best placed Italian at the moment, Sacamos in third place. And then we've got Tommy Tamble, the 53-year-old from Ancona, trying to impose himself in the middle of the fleet. And one lone boat heading over to that right-hand side. Doing quite well.
So Lorenzo over there is it's probably in a pretty good spot. If I could pick any of these Italian boats to be, I think that his spot is where I'd want to be. But we'll see if he's able to get back across or not with this left shift.
Lorenzo Sorrenti, winner of the last race. Now the best placed Italian boat in fourth.
Yeah, so Maradoni's going to try and slow him here and try and be able to get his teammates to be able to be in front of him at this winter mark. We'll see if he can pull it off or not.
Here they come. The whole fleet converging at the top mark. They all come together for the first time. And we've got all four British boats in that mix at the front, and penalties being handed out here, there, and everywhere. One for Italy, several for Italy, one for Great Britain. So this is really shuffling the pack now, but it's also given the chance for these 3 British boats to get ahead. So Maradoni, Speedy 1, Caven Fiennes, and now Fiennes picking a fight with the Italians, slowing down, trying to gain time for his opponents for his teammates to get ahead at the front of the fleet. Tommy Tamblay on the hunt, chasing down this British boat.
Yeah, it becomes interesting here where the British team has their top 2 boats pretty well ahead of any of the Italians. So what the Italians should now be focusing on is letting those 2 boats sail away and trying to get these back British boats into the 7th and 8th positions.
Well, first and second should be enough for a British win. But we'll see.
If the British team gets 1st and 2nd and 7th and 8th, they end up tying, and the 3, 4, 5, 6 will win over the 1, 2, 7, 8.
Got it. Now we've got a great view of the racing from all sorts of different angles. As a sailor, what angle do you prefer to race in? What view do you choose?
So I generally race in the 3D mode for about 85%, 90% of the race. So I like to flip back and forth. I use the 2D mode to sort of get the overall fleet perspective and see where my competitors are on the race course. But really close battle there. But besides that, for boat-on-boat interactions, I much prefer the 3D mode where I feel like I can see and gauge things a little bit better.
Now, Fiennes here in the middle of the screen has engaged in some really aggressive play and won a penalty early on, but then I think he picked up another couple. So I'm not sure he paid off. What was he trying to do?
So in this case, the British boats, they just want to be able to separate, right? They want to be able to make the Italian team have to what we call balance. So that means that the Italian team will have to really balance their covering of both the British boats to try and get both of them back into the back of the fleet. And that becomes much harder to do when they're separated on the race course.
Look how close it is coming up to the top mark. We're bound to see some penalties here, and this could be the decider for the whole race. A penalty on Alberto. Deja vu, and Alberto really slugging it out. This is boxing. This isn't sailing.
Yeah. So you see here, the British boats are both trying to just separate. So Deja vu here is really trying to just slow down Alberto as much as he can, and then the Italian boats are trying to just slow down on the British boats as much as they can. But big advantage here to the British boats, who Gavin was able to pull away here, and it's going to be all to do on Tommy Tamble here to get him back to the back of the fleet.
All right. Well, whilst we've been watching these battles at the back, Speedy 1 and Maradoni are virtually across that finish line, I think. No, we're still looking at them over here on the right-hand side.
Oh, that's it. Cavan was able to inflict a penalty on Tommy Tamble and should be able to just run down to the finish for the victory here.
Yeah. So Cavan Fiennes there, heading towards the finish line. Then come the 3 Italians, 5th, 6th and 7th, and Deja Vu bringing up the rear. So 12 points then for Great Britain.
Yeah, it was
15 points for Great Britain.
Yep.
Just doing the maths there. So we'll wait for confirmation. But that was a great performance, I think, by the British boats. And I suppose what it does is it highlights the importance of a team strategy and team play.
Yeah, you could see there, Deja Vu, despite getting the eighth position in the end, he really had a big impact of slowing down these Italian boats enough to allow Gavin to get away and sail cleanly to the finish line.
Just looking at the stats there, 16 and a half knots for Tommy Tambler. I think that was one of the fastest average times. And yeah, Speedy won and Maradoni in first and second. Few maneuvers, but they were never really hassled once they got away on that first leg. But I think Deja Vu, you can see him dropping back. Confirmation then that Great Britain won that as we suspected. And that brings the score now to Great Britain 4, Italy 2. It's best of 9. The next race could decide it. They're on match point, are Great Britain. And, well, it could all come down to the 1 against 1 in the star class. What a climax, but what pressure for the two players competing in that race.
For sure, and it looks like we have Arthur Farley here and then Rocco. So it's best on best for this one, and that's always a enjoyable thing to watch. So we'll see who will come across, and I'm watching it already, and they haven't even started the sequence, and they're already battling it out. So it should be a good race, and I'm excited to watch it.
It's going to be big. It's going to be bad. It's going to be aggressive. It's going to be great fun. It's the 1 against 1 in the star class for the males. And this is match point for Great Britain. If Italy do not win this, then they are out of the Nations Cup 2022. Straight out onto the water then. And we're just waiting for the race officers to start the sequence. Arthur Farley against Rock of Italy. And Rock, well, we've got a couple of youngsters here, really. Rock, 18 years old, from Manfredonia, but eSailing Italian champion the last 2 years running. So incredibly experienced. We'll talk about Arthur in a moment because let's discuss what's happening here.
Yeah, they're engaged in big battle already. It looks like there's a right shift on the course, so that'll really favor wanting to be starting on starboard to windward and being in a controlling position right away to force the other boat to sail out to the left-hand side.
15 seconds to go. It's match point in this semi-final B of the Nations Cup. And Arthur Farley could be a British hero in about, 7 or 8 minutes' time if he manages to beat Italy's Rock. But they're away with Farley on the right-hand side and immediately tacking, heading to the right-hand side of the course.
Yeah, that was a really good start by Rock there. He didn't allow Farley to get over the top of him in that last 10 seconds of the start, and Farley was forced to do a double tack, which gives Rock a pretty controlling position here at this point in the race.
Well, Rocco's favorite e-boat is the J70, and I think we saw him perform pretty well in that race, which was won by Italy. But how's he going to do in the Star? Much slower boat. with that huge wind shadow, remember, on the downwind leg. So talk us through what you think is going through the Italian's mind here, forcing the Briton out to the right-hand side.
Yeah, it's just making sure that you're very securely above that ley line. The last thing that he wants is have to do 2 extra maneuvers here with a double tack and force Farley to sit in his bad air coming back to the mark.
So Rock out in front in these very early stages of the race. And he'll want to get as big an advantage over his opponent as he can before they head downwind and that wind shadow starts to have an effect.
For sure. And you got to be nervous if you're Rock here. I don't think that there's anyone I'd want least to be behind me in a situation like this than Arthur. I've done plenty of one-on-ones with Arthur in my time, and he's a scary person to have chasing you down on these downwinds.
Rock being chased by the 2021 world #1 and still only 18 years old. That's the incredible thing. So Arthur Farley now trying to use that wind shadow to catch Rock, and he's certainly within a touching distance of him now.
And yeah, Farley's setting up well here to be able to jibe right on top of Rock once Rock decides it's time to come back. So it's all about when Rock times this jibe to make sure that Farley can't get ahead of him.
When do you think he should go?
It's hard to judge. Wants to push it as long as he can. But Farley's closing quick here.
He is closing quick. But we've seen this sort of drama, this chase happen already in the female star class race, and it cost the chasing boat, the Briton, the race, because it was happening on the final downwind leg. We're of course just coming up to the halfway stage of the race now, with the Briton Arthur Farley on the left-hand side, the Italian.
Yeah, we're seeing
actually the Italian. Sorry, the Briton took the right-hand mark, the Italian the left, and what a difference that made.
Yeah, it's still anyone's game here. So, with the windsogs how they're looking, I wouldn't want to be guessing where the breeze will be coming from next right now.
The Italian in a good position there, I think. I was just looking, the wind shifted slightly. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, it looks
certainly
like
closing the gap there.
Yeah,
if we can get a comparison of speeds on the two, 5.3 knots then for Rock. Or if we could fly over and have a look at the speed on the British boat.
Yeah, also 5.3 for Arthur. So.
Arthur's going to tack on this ley line.
Yeah, he wants to overstand that a little bit here. Make sure that when Rock tacks in front of him, that he's having to really push that ley line tight. And it's pretty much dead even at this point.
So here they go, bow to this top mark for the final time, and then it's the final, potentially the final leg of this semi-final. It could decide it, and Arthur Farley is just ahead. Rock trying to find a way through.
Yeah, so Farley here is going to be trying to inflict a penalty, or at least slow down Rock enough to create a little bit of a gap here. That way, has some defending to work with on this downwind.
So, slightest of advantages here for Arthur Farley. Yes, he's in front, but that wind shadow will be having an effect on him. And Rock trying to close the gap on him. He's got the whole of this downwind leg. Can the 18-year-old Rock keep Italy in the semi-final, in the Nations Cup, or can his 18-year-old opponent, Arthur Farley from the Isle of Wight, can he seal the deal for Great Britain and put them through to the final? And now it's just one-on-one. The Italian trying to get ahead. The Briton.
Oh,
Britain manoeuvring just
there
at the right moment to inflict a penalty on the Italian, and I think that might be it. There's still at least half of this leg to go. There's an opportunity to close that gap.
Certainly still possible, but advantage big time Arthur right now.
Advantage Arthur Farley, advantage Great Britain. This is potentially the race that will decide the semi-final. And at the moment, the Italian is not making inroads into the gap between him and Farley is looking good for victory.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here whether this is enough of a runway or not. It could get real close here right in these final moments.
And isn't it ironic? We've got a real age range of sailors, really experienced sailors, but in the end, the match race has come down to the two 18-year-olds in both the teams. And the Italian now closing the gap on the Briton, but he's run out of racetrack, and Arthur Farley crosses that finish line, gets the victory, and Britain are through to the final.
Yeah, that was textbook racing by Arthur there, and as I said, that there's not many people that I would place bets against him in a downwind race like that. So big congrats to Britain for taking this victory.
Yeah, well done to Arthur Farley and the rest of the team. So that's 5-2 to Great Britain. And in many ways, it's turned out to be not as close as we were expecting. You know, it was 2-2 at one point, but something's just come together. And the last three races, I should say, have been won by Great Britain. So 2 races left. Obviously, the Italians are going to do their best to win those for pride, but the final is out of reach. So Great Britain will be racing against France in the Nations Cup final 2022 at the weekend. Lots to look forward to. We can discuss that in a moment. But yeah, let's just tell me a little bit about how you feel Great Britain have done. What do you think has been the difference this time between them and Italy?
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it, or I mentioned it earlier about how the bigger fleet racing, it becomes a lot more about the team depth. And I think Italy might have been the deeper team here, where they won, I think, the 5x5, which looked like a decisive victory. But I think the top end talent on the British team was just a little bit too much for the Italians, and the likes of Arthur and Deja Vu and Gavin and Maradoni really shifted the momentum and took the win.
And where do you stand on this whole age thing? Is it better off to have the experience or better off to have the youth and the faster reaction times in eSailing?
I think you got to go with the reaction times, especially with a lot of these guys have been doing eSailing since they were 15, 16 years old, right? And to be able to learn the skill in that period of development, it certainly makes a big difference. And I think they also are very accomplished sailors in their real life. I think Arthur is a ILCA European champion. So it really shows the benefit of having that both real life skill and the virtual skill can come together to make a pretty formidable opponent.
And I know a lot of the Italian players, as I'm sure you do, and I know they're very competitive, and they're going to be really disappointed by that. By that result, right? Penultimate race then of the series, because we're gonna obviously race out the remaining events of the semi-final. So it's the F50. It's 2 against 2. Prodigo of Italy and Rock back in action, and then it's Von Pigeon and Arthur Farley for Great Britain. Really fast boat. There's we're talking about reaction times. You need fast reactions in the EF50. Already a penalty on Von Pigeon. It's a reaching start, and they are already a penalty on Von Pigeon. It's a reaching start, and they are powering up now with the Italians getting the advantage. A great start from Arthur Farley and Rock.
Yeah, Arthur timed that one absolutely perfectly, coming over the top at full speed and was just able to get clear and put himself in a controlling position.
Now, this 2 against 2 in the F50 is it's kind of got some pretty unique sort of tactics about where you want to be and how you want to race it, hasn't it?
Yeah, 2v2 is interesting because it's pretty simple for scoring. Whoever's in last place loses. So you want to make sure that you're keeping ahead of at least one boat, and as long as you're ahead of one boat, you're not out of the race. So really important that you can just get ahead and really control that from the tip of the fleet.
So Arthur Farley, right hand side of the screen, and look at the speeds. They're doing 20 knots now, and they'll get even faster as we see them on the following legs. Just looking at the two engaging there with a penalty for Prodigo.
Yeah, really nice move there by Arthur to come back and keep the fleet controlled. So he's looking to try and get uh, one pigeon ahead here, and it's really hard to catch up once you're behind in the F50.
There we go. They sail GP boats, former America's Cup boats, so fast with the wing sails. And Farley coming in now and choosing the opposite mark.
Oof, really nicely done by Von Pigeon there to just barely get over the top of Prodigio.
And now suddenly, with it being all mixed up, we've got a very distinct split there with the two British boats out in front and a full 90-meter lead on Rock and Prodigo.
Yeah, it's really hard to come back in these F50 races because you don't have that downwind wind shadow with these boats going faster than the breeze.
Brits around. But because of the speed of these boats, the slightest mistake, the slightest error in your maneuvers will see the opposition really close that gap very quickly. Before you know it, they've gone past you. So it's never over till it's over in the F50. And Von Pigeon and Arthur Farley at the moment look like they've got the advantage, but Rock and Prodigo very much in the hunt.
Certainly. And you see a big right shift coming here, which will make it pretty close between Arthur and Rock, but you got to give the advantage to Arthur here still.
Again, if you're watching this for the first time, the borders are the unique part of the F50 game. You can see the edge of the racetrack. You go over that and you pick up a penalty. That's the white line to the right-hand side. But now the Brits approach this gate in the lead, but that lead has really been cut down now by Rock. They've chosen that left mark. So Rock is round. Prodigo really quite a distance behind now. You can't imagine him being able to close the gap on the leaders.
Yeah, especially with them just going right to the finish now. It seems pretty over on the Italians' chances for this.
So one final turn and then a reach to the finish for Von Pigeon and Arthur Farley. And it's a Britain 1-2 in the F50. Von Pigeon takes the victory, and Rock and Prodigo will have to make do with third and fourth. So another tick in the win box for Great Britain in this semi-final. 6-2. So let's have a look at this. Best maximum speed, 48.3. So I told you they were fast boats, and you can absolutely see the difference. Average speed there, best one was over 30 miles per hour. Miles per hour for Arthur Farley.
Yeah, Arthur did a really good job of getting Von Pigeon into the lead there and then just controlling Rock for the rest of the racing.
That third leg, that third mark, absolutely crucial in deciding this race.
Yep.
Confirmation then that Great Britain are now 6-2 up in this semi-final. They've already sealed the deal, and there's just one race left now, and the Italians will want to come back in style to win that, to bring the final score to 6-3. And it's definitely my favorite. It's the grand finale to all the semi-finals because it's 10 against 10 in one of the fastest boats we've got in the Nacra, and it's absolutely crazy. Straight out onto the water then, as we wait for the race officials to kick us off with the start procedure. Just a few minutes it'll take for this race to work itself through. And I'm just looking down the list of competitors to see if we've got them all in, and I don't think we have yet.
Yeah, it still looks like we're missing a couple.
So what's the thing to look out for with the Nacra 17?
Just controlling the speed. The other interesting part about the Nacra is you don't upwind, you don't necessarily want to sail in the most pressure. The optimal wind speed for the Nacra is around 20 knots, and that's when your boat will be going the fastest. Once you start getting into the high 20s, your boat starts to slow down upwind. So it becomes a little bit different than other boats in that aspect, and you really have to pay attention to that.
All right, here we go then. Into the final few minutes of this semi-final. France against, Italy against Great Britain. I'm already looking forward to the final, you see. France against Great Britain.
That'll be a good one.
It'll be interesting to get your thoughts on that actually in a moment. But let's watch the start. So they're nicely set back from the start line. They've got some distance so that they can then pick up speed and really hit that line at full pelt.
Yeah, the goal is to be pretty much foiling and go, and then as you turn up, you can burn all of that speed and gain some distance from it.
Although these guys are coming in a bit early, and now they're a little bit stuffed, and they're going to have to work their way down the line in the hope of not crossing it early. And they are over, and lots of penalties for crossing over and for catching and hitting other boats. But there we go, they'll work those penalties through, and then we'll see the fleet kind of sort itself out.
Yeah,
here we go then. Ballista 71 out in front, Bradley.
Yeah, I think it was a really strong start by the Italian team here. They were certainly able to get away much better.
So overall, a good start for the Italians. They've got a first and a second. We've got Brindia of Great Britain in third, and then it's Italy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The race is theirs if things remain as they are. Right, some very dark clouds and strong winds coming in here. We're going to see them accelerate away, and this could change the order of things.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really see any British boats that are in a good position to help their team come back in this one. But coming up on the left side, we might have a couple with Speedy and Brianna.
So here we go then, top mark, and Bradley, talk us through it, because it's a real mix of sails, but Italy really controlling the race at this top mark.
Yeah, Italy did a good job there of just being able to pull away and extend with their top boats, and having 5 of the top 6 positions is always a good thing. So yeah, it's all up on Speedy and Brinda right now to get.
I've got a slight twist to the whole story of the night. There's been a protest. Obviously, we're continuing the match to the end, and we're on the last race. The protest's going to be taken care of by World Sailing officials after the match. Okay, so the result of Great Britain going through to the final is still provisional, depending on the decision of that protest. But let's not get too hung up about that at the moment. Let's just enjoy this final race in the Nacra, and Italy doing incredibly well with a first, second, third, and fourth, fifth, and sixth. There's a Briton in that top 7 as well. But let's follow this to the end then. We're going upwind for the second time, heading up to that mark. Speedy here, closest to us. Heading towards that ley line. And at the moment, there's a real sort of cavalry charge of British boats between 7th and 11th. And can you see them being able to sort of knock through that Italian wall?
Yeah, we'll see. And they're all coming in on a really good right shift here. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the Italians are able to get back across. It looks like they should be able to, but it certainly made this race a little bit closer.
Right, let's follow the leaders round this top mark, and we're into the final leg of the final race of this semi-final between Great Britain and Italy. Great Britain 6-2 up after the 8 races, and Italy dominating this race though in the Nacra. Valista 71, former world champion, leading the charge to the finish ahead of Lorenzo and ahead of Sosi.
Yeah, hopefully Valista is able to celebrate with one of his ice creams after this race victory. But it's good to see them win
I
one.
keep meaning to go and buy one from him, but I've never managed to get there yet to the town of Viareggio. And he'll be celebrating with one of his ice creams. Lorenzo will be celebrating with him as they win this final race. They haven't won the semi-final. Italy does have a protest in, so we'll see how that goes. But as things stand, the provisional result is victory for Great Britain. And here comes the British charge from 10th to 16th, but it's too late because Italy have done enough to win that final race.
Yeah, certainly a dominant performance in that final race, and it really shows how the Italian team just has so much depth to it to be able to handle those 10v10s.
But it kind of makes sense that they've come out fighting at the end, because it's not just for pride. If they truly believe that they have a solid and real protest, which they've put in, then obviously every result will count potentially when that protest is taken into account.
For sure, and it'll be interesting to hear. What do you know what the protest is about, or do you have any information
I'm
about
not
it at this time?
I'm, I'm not aware of what the protest is about yet, but I know that it's going to go up to a World Sailing race official, and we should find out sort of in the next 24 hours, I believe, once he has had a chance to look at that protest and the evidence for it. So we're looking now at the stats of that last race in the Nacra. I mean, with 20 boats on the course traveling at that speed, it's almost it's too complicated to look at, really. So
Yes,
all in all, a great night for Great Britain. Some really good performances. And we shall see what happens with the protest. But I think the British team couldn't have done much more, really, and they must be happy with how things have gone.
for sure, and I think regardless of the protest, as they start to get ready for their next round, they have to assume that they're still advancing, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up against France, which is obviously a very strong team.
So interestingly, 2 semi-finals, both finishing 6-3 in the end, although France sealed it early on with by going 5-0 up.
Yeah, I think France is certainly the team to beat at this point. With that dominant of performance against Spain, um, it really the British team must be a little bit nervous going into it.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up then, Bradley. 6-3 it ended in this second semi-final. Great Britain 6, Italy 3. The final decision is pending a protest, so we should know by tomorrow or during tomorrow what the result of that protest is. But as things stand, the final of the 2022 Nations Cup will be between Great Britain and France. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me, Bradley, and we'll see you for the final at the weekend. Goodbye.
Thanks for having me. Goodbye.